It was in early summer of 1864 when word reached the little Botetourt County town along the James River, just west of the Blue Ridge Mountains. General Hunter's federal troops were headed down the Shenandoah Valley, taking what they wanted and destroying anything useful to the Confederacy. While residents frantically gathered valuables and keepsakes, hoping to hide them from the Yankees, the local bankers implemented their plan for protecting the community's bank deposits. Across the river to the north was the Booz Farm, with its stately white frame home that predated the Civil War by 2 decades. An officer at the Bank of Virginia in Buchanan, Billy Booz had been authorized to transfer the cash from the bank vault to a secret hiding place in his home. As his wife, the former Mary Jane Johnson, kept watch at the front window, Booz removed several pine boards from the bedroom floor. This revealed an earthen vault that was not accessible from the cellar below the rest of the house. After the cash was placed beneath the floor, the boards were replaced and the area was covered with a large homespun rug. Then, Booz set the 4-poster bed back into its customary spot atop the rug. But that's not all. Mary Jane's 70-year-old mother, Elizabeth Johnson, who was living with the Booz family at the time and was in good health, took to the bed as if she were deathly ill. Soon, the bedside table was cluttered with bottles of herb medicines for the poor soul. That's what Hunter's men saw when they eventually reached the farmhouse and entered that bedroom, an afflicted old lady with some dread disease to be avoided. Good planning, cooperation, and more than a little personal courage saved Buchanan's bank deposits in 1864. At the time, young Charles Bernard Johnson, Elizabeth Johnson's 5-year-old grandson whose family lived just a few miles away, must have marveled with wide eyes when he heard the story of his grandmother's successful charade. This story from Becoming Bank of Botetourt, Centennial Celebration of a Community Bank by I. David Wheat, Jr., is one of our favorites and has become a cornerstone in our bank's history. 40 years later, C.B. Johnson would be part of the group who founded the company once known as Bank of Buchanan, called Bank of Botetourt today. On the 7th of September, 1899, Botetourt County Circuit Court Judge Henry Blair received a charter application requesting to form a joint stock company with the name of the company to be Bank of Buchanan. The application was filed by J.C. Dill, James Mundy, John C. Paxton, J.Z. Schultz, and John Aghion, the group of men whose names would go down in history as the founders of this bank, which opened its doors for business on October 1, 1899. In September of 1901, the General Assembly issued a state charter to Bank of Buchanan. James Mundy was named the first president of the bank in 1899 and served until 1904. 94 years later, in 1995, Bank of Buchanan changed its name to Bank of Botetourt as it expanded to 4 additional communities. During its long life, Bank of Botetourt has remained in operation through several financial disasters. C.B. Johnson and J.C. Dill were the men at the helm of the bank when panics, depression, 2 world wars, and 2 major overhauls of bank regulatory policies changed the face of the economy across the nation. The bank's first trial came in March 1903, when a panic began sweeping the nation. In the wake of the panic, the directors of Bank of Buchanan decided to increase the capital invested in the bank. That action increased the capacity of the bank to withstand future financial crises. Another panic came in 1907, but the bank remained a solid rock within the community. In a 1910 year-end report on the bank, the Examiner wrote, "In many respects, the general condition of this bank, the efficiency of its management, and careful attention to details is the best I have yet visited, and it is a Class A institution without any doubt." While Bank of Buchanan became a bastion of stability for the community, on the federal scale things were beginning to change. After the two panics in 1903 and 1907, it was clear that some action needed to be taken to stabilize the national economy. The result of this was the creation of the Federal Reserve System in 1912. 12 Federal Reserve banks were established in districts across the country, including one in Richmond. The first challenge to this new system came only 4 days after the Federal Reserve Board took office, when World War I began in Europe. This marked the beginning of a period of rapid inflation, compounded with a decrease in the national unemployment rate as Americans rallied all their efforts towards the war. The price of consumer goods jumped by 11%, and wholesale prices rose twice as fast, while the national unemployment rate dropped from 2.4% to 0.2% between 1915 and 1916. This was a good time for Bank of Buchanan, is illustrated by the substantial increase in capital investment by shareholders confident in the bank's longevity. 6 months after the U.S. entered the war in April of 1917, the State Corporation Commission approved the bank's request for a 71% increase in capital. This upsurge could not last forever, however. When the war ended in 1919, the bubble of inflation burst. The lifting of wartime controls caused consumer prices to skyrocket, rising by 77% during 1919 and another 28% the following year. While urban regions were able to recover by 1921, rural agricultural communities like Buchanan continued to struggle well into the 1930s. The stirrings of the Great Depression were on the horizon. Even during this period of financial heartache, Bank of Buchanan remained in operation. The bank was even able to make a 14.3% return on invested capital in 1928, the worst year of the decade. In the same year, the Botetourt Bankers Association was formed, with J.C. Dill elected as vice president of the committee. And then came the crash. In 1933 alone, over 4,000 banks collapsed across the nation. However, Bank of Buchanan's only concession to the Great Depression was compliance with observing the mandatory bank holiday ordered by the executive office after the crash to prevent cash runs on deposits. Bank of Buchanan itself stood strong during the financial crisis and was never critically threatened. The bank would go on to weather World War II with much of the same steady reliability it had shown during the previous panics, recessions, and international wars. This trend has continued even into the modern day, including withstanding the Great Recession that occurred between 2007 and 2009, although the bank's degradation was mostly felt in 2011. The bank quickly returned to profitability the following year. 2020 was an unprecedented year as the bank navigated during a worldwide health pandemic, COVID-19. Pandemic operations swiftly were put in play. The bank used all modes of customer service, including in-person service with face masks, online and mobile banking, while our lenders helped hundreds of businesses survive the economic consequences of the pandemic. Against the backdrop of turbulent change, the bank has remained a constant in the lives of the community ever since its inception. And what could be the result of such constancy besides growth? Beginning in 1989 with the Daleville office, Bank of Buchanan began to expand. From there, the bank opened 4 more branches over the course of only a decade, with offices in Eagle Rock, Troutville, Bonsack, and Lexington by the year 2000. Today, the bank owns and operates 13 branches, not only in Botetourt County, but in the neighboring counties of Rockbridge and Roanoke and the city of Salem and town of Vinton. But just who are the people who have made Bank of Botetourt into what it is today? A few of their names have already been mentioned, but just who were these people? Perhaps no one was more instrumental in the founding of the bank than J.C. Dill. Born in 1872, he came from a prominent family of Springwood, who had settled in that area in 1784. He was one of the founders of the bank, and over his career as cashier, his influence over the day-to-day business of Bank of Buchanan was immense. He was a detail-oriented man inclined towards precision. His working life began early, first as a telegraph operator and station agent for the C&O Railway Company. By the time he was 21, however, Dill had become a banker. Dill was not the only man that Bank of Buchanan needed, however. Just as important as Dill, who worked meticulously on the inside of the bank to keep things running smoothly, was the man who would become the face of the bank within Buchanan itself. This was C.B. Johnson, the young man in the opening story. Born in 1858 along the James River, he had a family with roots traceable back to the Revolutionary era. He had a natural charisma and could lead others to see value in what he represented and vouched for. Though he was a busy man who held down both his job at the bank and work within the clothing firm Abe Block & Company, Johnson was more than visible in his hometown of Buchanan as bank president. He was a diligent worker with stamina, and a leader who empowered others with the confidence to make decisions in tough times. Through all its trials over the coming decades, C.B. Johnson was at the helm of the bank, navigating it with a steady hand. The story of the bank, of course, doesn't end with Johnson and Dill. Its success has been maintained through the hard work of the staff that followed these two men. Presidents E.W. Dodd and D.E. Brew both had tenures of over 20 years. H. Watts Steger III was the fifth president of the bank and led a significant portion of the bank's growth during his 39-year tenure. From 1971 to 2010, the bank grew from a one-office institution in Botetourt County with $20 million in assets to an institution with 10 banking offices located in 4 Virginia counties and over $300 million in assets at the time of his retirement in 2010. Mr. Steger had extensive involvement with numerous banking associations within the banking industry, including the Virginia Bankers Association, the Virginia Association of Community Banks, and the Independent Community Bankers of America. His legacy will also be remembered for his steadfast encouragement of bank employees to further their education. Scholarships were established in his honor at both local community colleges when he retired.
One of the most vivid memories of my career was the flood of 1985. The flood was catastrophic to the entire Buchanan community and had a devastating impact to our bank as well, coming just 6 months after completion of renovations to our banking office. Those renovations involving the installation of a drive-through banking facility and an expanded operations area in the lower level of the bank. Paper files and important documents were rescued before the flood destroyed them. However, with 3 feet of water in the operations area, the bank lost its entire data processing system, which at that time was a manual ledger posting system. The flood occurred on a Tuesday evening and Tuesday night, and the town of Buchanan was without power for the following 2 days. But due to the dedication of our bank staff, the bank was able to reopen on Thursday morning prior even to the restoration of power to the community. In the days following, our bank's bookkeeping department traveled to the Bank of Floyd in Floyd, Virginia, several evenings a week for almost a month to process transactions, as thankfully that bank had a compatible ledger posting system that we were able to utilize until replacement posting machines were brought to our bank. In spite of the fact that the bank faced the monumental challenge of a recovery to a return to normalcy, the flood presented an opportunity that proved to be instrumental to our future growth and expansion, that being a data processing conversion from ledger posting to a computer system, which greatly improved efficiencies in that area of the bank. Within a year, the conversion was complete and a new era of our bank began.
The 6th and current president of the bank has a history no less stunning than his predecessors. G. Lynn Haith III is also from Springwood, just like J.C. Dill. He joined Bank of Botetourt in 1986 as Executive Vice President, following 3 years with Farm Credit Service. Mr. Haith was elected to the Board of Directors of the bank in 1990 and was named Executive Vice President in 1995. He was elected President of the bank in January 2002 and elected CEO of the bank in May 2010. His contributions include doubling the bank's total assets from $300 million to $650 million, relocating the bank's Daleville office to the new and thriving Daleville Town Center, continuing branch network expansion, and branding the mortgage division of the bank, Virginia Mountain Mortgage. Mr. Haith also steered the ship during 2 of the most challenging times, the Great Recession and the COVID-19 pandemic.
My tenure as CEO will definitely include 2 significant events: the Great Recession and the COVID-19 pandemic. The Great Recession caused much stress for our bank during my first 4 years as CEO, 2010 through 2014. The bank posted its first loss in over 100 years and required the bank to raise some additional capital and stifle growth. Many of our customers faced hardships and did not survive the Great Recession, particularly those in the home building business. The pandemic was uncharted waters for banks, and everyone else for that matter. At Bank of Botetourt, we navigated the pandemic by relying on guidance from experts such as health officials and our trade associations. I am proud of the resilience our bank showed during both times of crisis, and during the past 11 years, our bank has more than doubled in size and has posted record profits each of the past 2 years.
To go into detail about every person who had an impact on the bank over its decades of operation would take more time than what is afforded in this short program. But here are a few of their names: F.P. Wickline, G.L. Webster, Dr. M.S. Stinnett, W.N. Ackerley, J.E. McCullough, E.W. Dodd, D.E. Brew, and countless others who have made an impact on the bank by sitting on the board, working the register, or even serving as only a short-time employee. With a small community bank, everyone who dedicates their time and service to the business is valuable. This list of important names, however, would be far from complete without mentioning 3 more: Nancy Brubaker, R.H. Latane, and the enigmatic Mrs. Peary. These are the names of the first women recorded to work at the bank, with Miss Peary being mentioned in notes from the directors of the bank to J.C. Dill as early as 1918. These notes authorized Dill to employ Miss Peary to assist with the bank work until the work was gotten up in such shape that it could be handled by the usual force, and was instructed to employ her on the best possible terms. There is no record of Miss Peary being hired at that time, but Miss Peary may have been the first woman to work at Bank of Buchanan, albeit as a temporary employee. 6 years later, in May 1924, Dill was directed to hire the first full-time female employee, Ms. R.H. Latane. She was to do stenographic and other work, and to be paid $50 a month. The first female officer of the bank was Nancy Brubaker, recorded as bookkeeper in 1947. In 1948, she was joined by Carolyn Dudley, assistant bookkeeper. The first female to serve on the board of directors was Joyce Gillum Kessinger, who was elected to the position in 1986. These were the first influential women of the bank, but they would be followed by many more.
When I came to the bank in the early 1990s, I was the first full-time female employee hired with a 4-year college degree. With that distinction, I immediately attended the VBA School of Bank Management at UVA. The Monday that I returned from bank school, I fielded cascading questions from other females in the bank who seemed both intrigued and shocked that I had broken that barrier. I could tell there was a lot of interest. So in that moment, I encouraged the females and told them that I thought they could successfully complete bank school with something I did not have at the time, a lot of banking experience. The next year, a female followed me to bank school, and 2 years later, another female. So fast forward 30 years, our bank now has more female than male graduates of the UVA Bank School, and a female holding a college degree is certainly no longer notorious. I'm grateful to Nancy Brubaker, someone I only know of by reading her history book, for becoming the first female bank officer in the 1940s. And in the early 1990s, long before DEI was a movement, our bank already had a female on its board of directors. Joyce Gillum Kessinger was inspiring to females at our bank. So when my career comes to a close, I hope that I'm remembered as a catalyst who helped women advance in banking. And in my present day role, I get to help all employees continue their education, and I think we're a better bank because of it.
Bank of Botetourt has always been on the leading edge of progress, not only in the advancement of its staff, but in the use of up-to-date technology. The flood of '85 was not the beginning of its technological upgrades, nor was it the end. In the late 1940s, the bank acquired its first 2 desk-model electric adding machines. Exactly 50 years later, in 1998, the bank launched the service of online banking, making it one of the first community banks in Virginia to do so. This dedication to progress has continued into the modern day, with the bank converting its mainframe computer system in 2013 and launching its mobile banking app in 2014. Present-day cybersecurity is top of mind in protecting financial and personal data. The history of the bank, and even all the people working inside of it, though, would mean absolutely nothing without looking at the larger picture. At the end of the day, Bank of Botetourt is a community bank, and without the support of its local customers, shareholders, and the confidence of its citizens to buoy the bank through every challenge, the bank would have been doomed from day one. Thanks to the support of its citizens, the bank found itself in a position to share its good fortune with community organizations very early on. As far back as 1921, the board of directors authorized J.C. Dill to provide funds to help send 15 Botetourt County boys to Blacksburg for a special farmer's course. Over the years, financial prosperity has allowed the bank to continue to say thank you to the community. Board minutes during the Brew-Dodd years revealed dozens of occasions that the bank made donations to organizations in Buchanan, Botetourt County, or Western Virginia. These organizations include Botetourt County and West Central 4-H, Children's Home Society of Virginia, Botetourt Council on Weekday Religious Education, Buchanan High School Science Fair, Buchanan High School Seniors for Annual Trip to Washington, D.C., United Fund, Virginia Forest Service, Buchanan Lions Club, Buchanan High School Football Team for new uniforms, and the Buchanan Volunteer Fire Department.
Preserving history is important to any organization. In 1999, our bank celebrated its 100th anniversary, and we found a unique and fun way to preserve some of our bank's history at that milestone with the creation of a time capsule. Employees were given the opportunity to place an object in the time capsule that captured some piece of our bank's history or something that was popular in 1999. Plans are to open that time capsule in 2049 at our bank's 150th anniversary celebration. I remember putting a fun item, a Pez candy dispenser, into that capsule. I'm hopeful in 2049 I'll be able to join the celebration and be part of the reopening of the time capsule.
In 1952, the board supported a higher education initiative that deserves special mention. At their August meeting, President Dodd told the directors about plans for a new graduate school of business at the University of Virginia. He explained that it was proposed as a joint project of the state government and the banks in Virginia, and recommended that the bank support the project financially. The board unanimously agreed to do so. Today's Darden Graduate School of Business Administration opened in 1954 thanks to the support of Bank of Buchanan and other Virginia banks. Symbolically, 2 familiar bank names, H. Watch Steger III and Michelle Alston, teach at the Virginia Bankers School of Bank Management, physically located at the Darden School. The bank's community outreach continues even to the present. From 1992 to 2001, the bank supported Art by the James, showcasing artists through the town of Buchanan. In 2021 alone, the bank supported over 100 community events, either financially or by employee volunteer work. These events included the Community Outreach Golf Tournament run by the Botetourt County Sheriff's Office, Spring and Fall Cleanup in Buchanan, Habitat for Humanity Home for Good, Botetourt's Relay for Life, Roanoke's First Friday events, the Dr. Pepper Park concerts, the Truck and Tractor Pull at Jeter Farm, the Daleville Summer Concert Series, the Beaver Dam Farm Sunflower Festival, and dozens more. Our success for over 120 years has been attributed to Bank of Botetourt living out its mission and vision.
Customer focused and community committed.
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 We hope this video has helped you to understand our roots and inspired you to live our mission and vision in your role at Bank of Botetourt. Bank of Botetourt has been committed to reaching out within our local communities to do all we can to further the area's overall economic development. As a community partner, we make charitable contributions for education, culture, and the arts, social service agencies, charitable activities, community and economic development, and other programs that impact the needs of our communities. By bridging the needs of our local communities with the resources of Bank of Botetourt, we help improve the quality of life for residents in our service areas. We realize that we can only be as successful as the communities we serve. Many leaders and hundreds of bank employees since 1899 have helped the bank achieve its vision.
We expect Bank of Botetourt to be the best in this market in providing customer financial services and to be a respected community partner.
What part of our history will you contribute to? We can't wait to find out.